G&T show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. Live long and prosper, bitches.
Are friends with benefits?
Speaking of having a good time, Terry.
Dayton broke the G&T show. This is now the David Mack
Appreciation Hour. You assholes.
What is it about this guy that people love him so much? With his purple velvet cape and his crown. I thought it was a little much when he had us carry him in the studio on a throne. I am awesome! Look what I have done! Look what I have brought upon the world!
There is an urge to go nya.
I heard rumors that you might be working on something else, but we won't prod much. I'm going to say it.
I'm going to pry a little.
Dare you! How dare you ask me to change it? Do you not understand the majesty of my genius? And the guy sitting next to me looked at me like he was, like I'd crapped in his hat.
Yeah, it's the professionalism that sells the show. That's right.
And Joe Lontrue, this is Gettysburg 7 Nick, and welcome to another supplemental log of the G&T show. And there she is, to my left, your right, Terry Lynn.
Cricket.
Yeah, Terry's not here this time. She's off doing real world stuff. And to my right, your left, wearing his Sherlock Holmes ensemble over his Klingon armor, Ceridium.
Kapla! I like a good whodunit.
Yeah, oh, of course. And our special guests for this supplemental, like, I wish we had kept a number of the supplementals just to know what number we were on.
Oh, that's a good point.
Our authors, Paula M. Block and Terry Erdmann.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. How are you?
We're good. We're very good.
I want you to know
Good.
I got a gift with your name on it last year for Christmas. I got the Topps Trading Card Series book.
Yay!
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I did. Somebody said they saw it and they said it screamed for me. So yeah, no, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Right on.
Oh, glad you liked it.
Recently, I've been reading a lot of Star Trek fiction, and I came across Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Lus Latinum Lost and Found, and I have to say, I absolutely love what you guys did with that book, and found it actually relevant to a lot of things that were actually happening right now in of all things, the gaming industry.
I've heard that. I read something about that on Facebook, and obviously that wasn't in our minds when we wrote it, but more the better.
Hey, if it's in there, we'll claim it, okay?
So, were you trying to make a commentary on the publishing industry when you started writing this book?
No, I don't think so. It's sort of...
There are things that are relevant that happened in our lives that worked into it that we thought might be fun to make a little bit of fun of. But the topic for the book actually came from our editor, Margaret Clark. And she just threw one sentence at us and asked us to make up a story about it, which was Quark manages to find out there's a new edition of Vulcan Slave.
Vulcan Love Slave. And there's a new edition out, and he wants to get his hands on it, and he has a chance to, but he doesn't want to pay that much money. And so he loses the chance, and he spends the entire rest of the book trying to get it back and spending much more money than he would have in the first place. And that was the whole premise.
Yeah, so he goes practically to the edges of the quadrant in order to track it down. I love it.
Well, when you start writing, I mean, you never know where you're going to go with a story. They evolve as you're writing. You may think you know the ending. You might even think you have some ideas that you want to touch in the middle.
but I don't think any of that ever works out. We're always, even when we're writing nonfiction, we're always surprised when we read it later and say, where did that come from? You know?
Yeah, who wrote this? Who came in the middle of the night and wrote it? So,
the elves. The Keebler elves.
Yeah. No, but one of our questions to Margaret was, since it's Vulcan Love Slave, how risque do you want it to get? And she said, well, have you read the
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey yet? And we said, really? You want it to be like that? And she said, well, no, but, you know. Anyway, so that gave us an idea, like, we couldn't go that far, but she kind of seemed to have the door open to whatever we did want to do. But,
right on.
I'm feeling an Andorian story here, 50 Shades of Blue.
But it's always fun to write for Ferengi. I really love Ferengi. I think, you know, we kind of think Ferengi. So we really look forward to doing a Ferengi story.
Yeah, they're great characters. They're surprisingly easy to write for. It just kind of happens. You know, you think about what would someone who was polite not say, and then you write the opposite, and it comes out. You know.
And I think that Quark and Rom and Nog are very specific. I mean, we can hear their voices in our heads, so that when we were writing them, we felt as if we could capture their voices because we just know what they sound like.
That's I heard voices in my head, and I took medication, and it's doing much better.
Yeah, but not as creative.
Yeah.
Well, that's well, you know, it's funny. Two of my favorite character in all of Star Trek through all of the TV shows, and we'll get to this when we talk about some other things, is Garak. I love Elam Garak. He's just so wonderful. But my second would be Nog. Because of the growth that character went through, just unbelievable growth. And it's a story I've told here on the show many times. I discovered Deep Space Nine in 2005 when I was in Iraq, and I was watching it on DVD, and the whole Siege and then Paper Moon really, really spoke to me. And I just loved that character so much.
Yeah.
Well, Paula wrote that chapter. Nog is kind of prominent. There's a chapter in Latinum Lost when Nog is working and Quark goes to O'Brien and makes him get Nog out of the Jeffries tube or whatever he's in.
No, the piece of equipment that he's in.
Yeah, and Paula just wrote that real fast, and when she handed it to me to read, and I just said that you know what, that sounds exactly like Nog to me. So she had him down right then.
Right on.
Which leads to, if you have any questions about how two people write together, that's basically how we do it. We alternate writing. With the fiction, we alternate writing chapters. You know, unless somebody had a strong preference for doing one particular scene or not, because we write very detailed synopses in advance. So we kind of really knew what direction we were going in. It was just a matter of making all the details and the reality happen.
Very cool. Very cool. Before we change subject to some of your other things that you've written, that you've created, are you familiar with the Gamergate controversy that's been going on?
You know, I've been reading about it, but not being a gamer myself, and Terry isn't either. We've paid attention a little bit to it, to the whole female-male type of battle that seems to be coming up there, but we haven't gotten thoroughly engrossed in it.
Okay. Well, essentially, it is a male culture versus a female culture, and the resistance that a lot of people are experiencing in regards to basically the evolution of this industry, of the gaming industry. And as I was reading, you know, I saw a lot of parallels, because here we have what seemed to be an industry that was male dominated, that was controlled and developing certain products in a very specific manner to appease a certain group of customers. And the reality was there was a female behind it all, essentially.
Yeah.
And that she had to take on this role or this persona where she was almost non-existent as a female, in order to be taken seriously. So again, it's in my mind, I saw a lot of parallels, and I just thought that was very interesting, very timely for what was happening, and it made me want to talk to you guys.
Well, it was kind of fortuitous. I can see where you'd see a parallel with that, but you also obviously realize that you're talking about Ferengi society too.
Exactly.
which itself was very male dominated, while the women did a lot of stuff behind the scenes. In Quark's family, his father was reportedly no good with finance at all, and Rom kind of inherited that. But Quark was always good with money, and he got that straight from his mother. So his mother was kind of behind the scenes, making smart investments and things, but couldn't hear about it in public because it wouldn't have been allowed. She would have been arrested. She almost was arrested a couple times.
Yeah, the truth is, when Deep Space Nine was on the air, I think when Ira Bear was running the show, he really brought in a lot of that kind of commentary. They said, don't you realize that if you allowed women to also participate, you would double the finances of your planet? And it's like, the males had never thought of that before. So I think that commentary is actually out of the television show itself.
Yeah.
They didn't stress it. It was just, one of those additional thoughts to the thousands of things being said on that show. I just think Deep Space Nine was always brilliant from the beginning. So we were honored to really, be asked to write something for it.
Yeah. So it would make sense that that at least in terms of Vulcan Love Slave, that would be the case, that, it would surprise everybody that a woman was behind these latest editions. But in terms of the publishing industry and the publisher kind of wanting to keep these people under wraps, I think that was just more a little sarcastic commentary about publishing. I don't think they care if a man or a woman is writing behind the scenes as long as they're the ones who get the money.
Well, I think that is true now, but look, going back, 50 years to TOS, that definitely wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Which we also saw in Deep Space Nine. The episode where Sisko was Benny.
Yeah.
Oh, so Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it just shows that the industry needs to evolve, and although society as well, because Deep Space Nine, they were talking about the Ferengi Society and how it was needing to evolve in order to keep moving forward. And then in, television and writing and publishing, and now in gaming, we're seeing it again, where the industry has to evolve in order to keep progressing.
Yeah,
I'm
surprised that there's such a kind of a vehement reaction against women in gaming, because, you think science fiction and gaming and all that stuff, that's the ultimate equality type of thing. Why wouldn't that be, balance?
Mm-hmm. Well, what you're looking at is a lot of young males that are mainly into the first-person shooter games, so they're actually more fans of like the Expendables and Die Hard and things like that. So, and that's where they're and it's a whole mess. It's about 40 different things wrapped up under one tag, and what it comes down to is a whole bunch of people that have never been taught manners.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is not new in history, by the way.
Right.
And it's not
very true.
And it's not. This isn't the only place on the planet that is taking place. I mean, there are parts of the world where women have to cover themselves entirely before they're allowed to leave the house.
Oh, I've lived there.
So this is...
Yeah, you were there.
You know, it's all sort of based on a really unfortunate reality. Yeah. Come on, folks, you know, clean up your brains. You know, can't we all get along?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, I can think of another culture that really needs to evolve, and I'm not going to mention them by name, Klingons. They really need the Klingons to become civilized Klingons. See, Mike is our resident Klingon, and I'm our resident Romulan.
Romulan, oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's taking a jab, but that's okay.
No, I'm speaking the truth. There's a difference. I don't understand why that's so hard to understand. Now, just saying.
Okay.
One of the things is the Secrets of Star Trek Insurrection. Now, I understand, and I would love sometime, somehow, to read what the book that could never be printed about it, that Michael Pillar.
Michael Pillar's?
Yes.
Well, I think actually that Eric Stillwell, who worked for Michael for years, actually somehow got that online at some point.
Yeah, it's been taken down now because we interviewed Eric at Star Trek Las Vegas, the convention.
Oh,
and
it's been taken down.
Yeah, and he was, what a joy he was to interview and to talk about Michael's just contributions to Trek overall.
Oh yeah.
What was the difference? Because you all wrote the book. You can't see it. I'm doing air quotes.
Well, we did the Secrets of Insurrection, which was kind of, you know, your traditional making of type thing. But Michael's book was a separate book.
About the
whole
script.
And it was just going to be about his experience writing it. And I actually read it because I was in my position over at Paramount as the publishing reviewer for all things, you know, that went through for Star Trek publishing. And I read it, and I can honestly say there was nothing terrible in that book. It was kind of it was an overreaction on a low-ranking person in a certain department who was afraid that somebody might get mad if they read it. But it was just, you know, it was just silly.
That makes it even more interesting then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of sad.
Yeah, because,
there was nothing controversial in that book. I can state that for a fact.
Every film goes through so many changes.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the motion picture itself. From, you know, the God thing to what became the motion picture. Yeah. And reading Nicholas Meyer's book about his career and the different scripts and drafts and everything, and for Star Trek too, it's just there's a lot more controversial things in the book that Herb Solo wrote years ago about the original series. A lot more controversial things in there. Excuse me.
Well,
it was just politics. It really was.
The studios are always worried about the politics. The studios are always worried about the politics and the legalistics of things. They're also really worried about publicity. You know, if people start talking about the wrong thing, they certainly don't like it. And I mean, when I used to work as a publicist for the studios, I would get yelled at for using alliteration in some of the marketing materials because they said, people don't like to read that sort of thing. I'm thinking, you don't know anything about it. You don't know what the people like. But there's a lot of control with any big company, and the movie companies are no different from any other big company. If you were writing something about an insurance company or Wall Street or anything else, you know, they try to control everything that is said. So they were just concerned about that book. I agree with you. I would really love to read that book.
Insurrection is one of my. It ranks very high in my favorite Trek movies, just because it was a different kind of story from what we had been seeing, and called back more to what the television show was like. So I do love Insurrection, and that's awesome that you guys got to kind of make a making of. So that's cool.
It was a lot of fun. We I like stories. I'm not a big bang 'em, shoot 'em up kind of. I mean, I love Die Hard. Okay, I really love Die Hard. But
best Christmas movie ever.
But that's not my only kind of favorite movies. I like Judi Dench movies, and so Insurrection was kind of in the middle. You know, it had the action scenes, it had a lot of that, but it really had some gentleness in it, and so going to those sets. There was a big difference between visiting the set on First Contact when the Borg were coming in, and on Insurrection when there's waterfalls and hummingbirds, and they were very different from one another. And I think that's a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
I always felt it was it was very much like a regular Michael Piller Next Generation episode, you know, thoughtful and with interesting philosophical things in it and all that kind of thing. But I think the public was kind of looking for a big bang thing, you know, after First Contact, which was all action. They were looking for something else like that, which was their loss.
Yeah. But again, love it. So, Nick, you were going to ask a question, or
now you stated that you like more thoughtful films. Did one of my favorite films, two of my favorite films, one is Quiz Show, which I don't remember a single explosion in it.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And the other is The Queen.
Oh,
yeah.
I fell in love with that movie.
Yeah. No, we love movies like that. We really prefer to see movies like that, which usually tend to be independent movies, than big Hollywood blockbusters. We kind of wait for the end of the year when all the interesting movies come out, you know, and that's when we go see them. This summer we don't get to the theaters very much unless there's a Star Trek or Star Wars movie coming out, which you have to see those.
Now you mentioned Margaret Clark, who every Star Trek author we've had on has talked about with us. And did you also work with Marco Palmieri?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, he was our editor on The Secrets of Insurrection.
Now, what is it that they both have brought to the Star Trek literary universe, you think?
Well, they certainly brought a lot of new authors into the gambit of the universe, because originally there were just ones that came in at the beginning, and they each brought in more writers. But they both had different directions they like to go in with stories. They liked very broad things. So, and Marco especially likes continuing storylines. You know, to the point that sometimes you might not be able to know what something's going on in a story because it's gone 5 books before that. But he has a lot of readers who really enjoy that. And, you know, you need some of all of those books, you know, some that are just one story and out, and some that are continuing stories.
Yeah, when I think for a while Margaret wasn't working with Simon & Schuster and Marco was, and we pitched a one-off story to him, and he really liked it, but he couldn't use it at the time because it didn't fit into his continuity.
Yeah. It wasn't complicated enough. He wanted it to lead in the tendrils to lead in a whole bunch of different directions.
Yeah. But unfortunately, the story that we came up actually had a beginning, a middle, and an ending.
So, which the Loves Latinum Lost and Found, this is your first fiction release, isn't it?
Our first published fiction. We've written a lot of fiction in the past, but we've honestly never submitted it. We've pitched a few things in the past, and for one reason or another, they haven't gotten they haven't been purchased. We when Ira Stephen Bear was producing the television show Twilight Zone, we went in and we pitched some things, and they really loved one of our stories, but they had another one, and they told us what the other one was, and it was just edging up against similarity enough that they couldn't get. So we do write quite a bit of fiction, but we've never really published it. And we're glad to come in with a bang. I mean, we really like this one, so we're happy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, in fact, they liked it enough that they immediately told us they want us to do another one. So we are going to be
excellent. Congratulations.
We'll be working on that shortly. We know what the title of it is.
How are you able to tell us the title?
Well, it's another Quark story because they've mentioned that.
Cool.
It's going to be another Quark story, and I don't think it would give anything away to give them the title. Do you, Terry?
No, I don't think Margaret would mind.
It's called The Empty Sack.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a rule of acquisition right there.
There you go. So you think about the rule of acquisition that goes with that, and that kind of will give you
nice
a little bit of what the story's about.
Very cool. Very cool. So excited now.
Now, how did the idea come about for the original Star Trek, the original Topps Trading Card Series book?
That's a case of, we've written a lot of nonfiction. And almost, with the exception of one book, I think just about every book that we've ever done for that was initiated by an editor who said, can you do a book about? And that was one of those books. They came to us and said, can you do a book about top trading cards, just the Star Trek ones that came out in 1976?
We think we're the luckiest people in the world. The telephone rings, we pick it up, somebody makes us an offer, will you write a book about this? And we'll either say yes or no. Sometimes we'll ask, what's the budget? We've never, Paula, you said we pitched one that was...
There's only one book that was our idea, and that was the Star Trek 101 book.
Oh, that's right.
Just because people used to, in my capacity overseeing all the Star Trek publishing over at Paramount, people used to come in my office and say, God, why do you have to know all this stuff? Isn't there a book where I can just find everything in it? And I'd say, yeah, read the encyclopedia. They say, no, that has too many words. There's too much in it. I don't want to deal with that. It's too heavy, So it occurred to me, and I went home and talked to Terry about it, that they really wanted a dumbed-down Star Trek 101 type book. So we pitched it, and they finally said, okay. Because at first pocketbooks were saying, no, nobody wants that. And I said, no, really, there are some people who do.
That's true. But my record is clear because I didn't pitch that. Paula actually brought me into it, so I still the phone rings and I say yes. We thought about that Star Trek 101 book. We thought it was hilarious. It's a primer. It's 101. That is, it's in the title. It's a primer. And a couple of the reviews about it, people said it's so simple. It's almost like it's a primer.
Is it being used in that course? I believe it's at Syracuse University.
Well, there have been a lot of courses at colleges over the years about Star Trek. I think they should. I don't know. I don't think that it is, but because we've never seen big royalties on it.
But no, we were surprised years ago. We found out that the Deep Space Nine companion was being used and as a book over at USC Film School, and so we went over there. Sure enough, they had it locked up in the research cage.
No, along with Star Trek Action.
Along with Star Trek Action, yeah, they're in there, and recently we found out that somebody who graduated and has a career.
Making DVDs and films and stuff.
Right, said that when he went to USC Film School, and he carried 3 books in his backpack the whole time he was there. 2 of them were assigned by the school. He called them his 3 Bibles. 2 of them were assigned by the school, and the third one was Star Trek Action. So,
right on.
It got him all excited about how TV shows were made.
Yeah, it's kind of fun sometimes.
Very cool.
Now, when did you become Star Trek fans?
Paula can't remember the beginning. Paula was a Star Trek fan before the original series was ever conceived in Gene Roddenberry's brain.
Yeah, I was born that way. No, no, I was in high school when Star Trek came out. What was I? I was like 14 years old. So so I'm very old. But and I watched it, and it was just perfect for my age group. And I loved it, and then it went away after 3 years, and I still liked it. I actually started writing little stories about it that nobody saw until I went away to college and discovered Star Trek fandom. So, and then
where did you go to college?
I went to Michigan State.
Oh, smart.
And I suddenly discovered that there were a lot of people that liked Star Trek and collected stuff, and it surprised me because I'd never known any of that stuff. And I just fell in with a group of friends, and I became good friends with the people who ran the first Star Trek convention and a lot of the other things. So it was great. And I was friends with Joan Winston, who wrote that book about making a Star Trek convention and the Star Trek world. So I was in that era of Star Trek fans.
Have either of you read the books that
Mark Cushman?
Thank you, Mike. You were right there with me. That Mark Cushman has been writing. These are the Voyages.
Is that those recent ones?
Yes.
That he did? Yeah. I haven't. I've heard they're really good, but I think my problem is that after working for the studio for so many years, it's an unlicensed book, so I kind of look the other way because I don't ever want to be accused of using stuff like that in the stuff that we write. Because it's got all these great stories in it and everything, and I've seen photography from it, and it looks great, and I've heard good things about them, but I just haven't read them.
We kind of don't look at some things sort of to protect our brains. We don't want it in there in case we, accidentally write it down and don't remember where it came from.
Right.
True.
And that's something we've learned from interviewing the authors is we may have like the coolest idea ever, and they're like, yeah,
don't tell us.
Yeah. But you've also put together the Star Trek Original Series 365 and Star Trek The Next Generation 365.
Yeah.
So these books look at the whole of those individual series, and is that I haven't admittedly I have not checked them out yet, but
shame on you.
Yes.
The publisher, Abrams Books, has a long published series of books called the 365 books. They have an odd shape, and they all have that many spreads. It's not pages. There's twice as many pages as that. Those are spreads. And they've been doing them for many years. They've done,
they're full of all sorts of great photography. That's kind of what they're known. And I guess the conceit of it was that you'd look at one spread a day or something. Who does?
Yeah, many years ago, that was maybe the original thought. But they've done them on, New York City 365, astrology 365, astronomy 365.
Jewelry.
Jewish jewelry 365, Greek artifacts 365. They have many, maybe as many as 100 titles.
And they'd had a lot of success with a couple that they did on Star Wars. So they wanted to do a couple Star Trek books too. And we got picked to write them, and they were actually a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was another case where the telephone rang one day and they said, "Will you do this book?" And we said yes. but we covered it. When you get a chance to look at them, the color photography is really, really, really nice. I mean, the Abrams Books is essentially a coffee table publisher. They use the best paper and the best color processes. Actually, years ago, I said one day we'd published some things with Simon & Schuster and Titan Books and St. Martin's Press and Time Life Books. But I actually said one day, we will never publish anything with Abrams. And then suddenly we did. So I was,
Why?
He wasn't saying that like he didn't want to. He was just saying, I don't think we'll ever get to.
Yeah, because they do these full color photo books, and I couldn't imagine it ever happened. But it has 365 spreads. Meaning the left side page and the right side page. Mm-hmm. You open it up and it's all one thing. And we, for the original series book, we just covered all 79 episodes of the original series. So some of them have 2 or 3 spreads and some of them have 4 or 5 spreads, and it's filled out to 365. So we tried to find interesting things that maybe hadn't been said before or hadn't been said recently.
And we tried to find a photography that, hadn't been done to death in every other book or magazine that had been out there already. So,
there's the challenge. Find facts and photos that have never been published in 50 years of Star Trek.
We were able to get a couple like that, but,
Yeah, we maybe succeeded once or twice.
I thought maybe you were saying that you wouldn't have anything with Abrams because of the J.J. Abrams movies.
Oh, no. It has nothing to do with it.
Oh, no.
And we did those books.
The first one was actually, I think, before the first J.J. Abrams.
No, I guess, no, because the first one came out in 2009, and the original series book came out in 2010. So.
Yeah, okay, and we'll make a confession here. We watched Lost.
Any chance that we may see a Deep Space Nine 365 in the future?
We
Would you be interested?
But it's always entirely contingent on what the market seems to indicate. And while the original series 365 book sold really well, and it's like in its 5th or 6th printing, apparently it makes a great Christmas present,
Good plug.
But the Next Generation one, which we actually thought would be more popular since the television show was so popular, wasn't as popular. It only went into like 2 editions. It's still on some shelves, but it wasn't nearly as popular as the other one. I think the first one just seemed to hit a broader audience because there are a lot of people who are kind of closet Trekkies. They would never go to a convention or anything, but in their mind, they really liked Star Trek, and I think there are more of them who feel that way about the original series than about the Next Generation.
I actually kind of do a little research on the street when I talk to people, and the subject comes up, and you find out every living human being knows about Spock. They know the name, they know that he's a Vulcan, they know about his pointed ears. But if you say Riker or Data. There's a lot of people who have no idea what you're talking about. So it's surprising. To a large amount of the general public, Star Trek means Kirk and Company.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the original Star Trek kind of became like Mickey Mouse in the sense that everybody knows what it is, whereas the Next Generation, a certain age group and above knows about it, but older people kind of,
And then even among fans, we still hear a lot of people say, I never watched Deep Space Nine because it was going to be darker, or it could never be as good as the Next Generation, so Deep Space Nine was never, it's like the ugly middle child, the middle.
It really was.
Something.
Yeah.
But it also allowed them to get away with a whole lot more, I think, in their storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's true.
I think so too. Because, and they really trusted that Ira was keeping things going and everything, and they kind of left him alone while they developed the other shows. So it was great.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine is my personal favorite. So.
Oh, mine too, without question. I love all of it, but Deep Space Nine is really my personal favorite. And but because of that, we're afraid, and the publishers certainly don't want to do an investment where they suspect that they're not going to recoup their investment.
Yeah, because books with color photography are really expensive.
Yeah. So. And because there's a lot of people who'd rather just look at it online, and there's so much stuff online, the book publishing industry is, it's in jeopardy like the newspaper industry is.
Right.
So they're very
Everything's
careful.
gone digital.
Yeah, they're very careful with what they do right now.
Yeah.
Well,
but we don't know if they call us up and say, hey, okay, we want to do it. We'll be on it first thing in the morning.
Yeah, we're just waiting for that phone call.
Yeah, I think Nick and I would definitely be purchasing the Deep Space Nine 365.
Oh, without a doubt.
We're all
copies. That's not enough.
Darn.
Now, I have an idea that you could pitch a year in the life of Star Trek conventions where they pay you to just travel to all of the conventions.
That would be cool, but do you think that people would think that, after the first 3 of them, do you think they'd think they were very different?
I go to several a year, and they kind of are.
Yeah.
Because you have the really small ones, like, what was it, like 2 weeks ago I was in Allentown, Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very small convention, and Nichelle Nichols was there.
Yeah.
And then, we cap off our Super Bowl every year for this podcast is the Las Vegas convention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have a booth there.
And there's small conventions, like the one in Maryland where they really get into the writing about
Surely. That's
Surely, yeah.
I live in Maryland, so I go to Farpoint, which is in February, and I try to go to Shore Leave, but it's been bumping up against Vegas every year for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been getting really close to it.
But yeah, that's where I met Dayton Ward and Dave Mack and all of them.
Right on.
I think we met them in, where did we meet those guys? In San Diego?
We met them in San Diego, about maybe 10 years ago we met them down there, yeah.
Well, we've become much better friends on Facebook.
I don't know if there would be a large enough, well, actually the pitch that you just did about a year of conventions, it could probably be done as a zine, so you wouldn't need
a blog. I think it would make a great blog.
So you wouldn't need a big publisher. But I don't want to write it, and I'll tell you why. When this is the way I met Paula. I was a publicist for 20th Century Fox Pictures, and we had a series of science fiction movies coming up. The first one was Buckaroo Banzai. The second one was Cocoon. The third one was
Oh my God, Buckaroo Banzai!
The Fly. Mm-hmm. The fourth one was The Fly. So I was in the department. They prior to anybody in the department having been there, Fox had released Star Wars, and Lucasfilm had sent out some people to do these conventions.
Yeah, these advanced things.
Yeah, and somebody at somebody at 20th Century Fox had heard that there were conventions, and they said, why don't you go try to sell these sci-fi movies that we're going to have at the conventions. So, and I drew the short straw, and
but he likes to travel.
Oh, I love to travel, and that's the reason. They said, who likes to travel? And everybody turned and looked at me, and so I got this job. And so from 1986, is that the year we met, Paula? 86?
No, we met in 85. You started in 84.
From late 1984 until almost 1992. I went to up to 45 conventions. You can't go 52 because over the month of December there aren't any. Everybody breaks for Christmas. I went to about 45 conventions a year, every year for over half a decade, and I don't think I could do that any longer.
Yeah, burnout definitely.
Besides, I don't want him to meet somebody else like me, because we met at Media WestCon in 1985, and after that, after spending 2 years meeting each other at a bunch of conventions, usually deliberately, hey, where are you going to be this week, and getting together at different conventions, we decided to live in the same city.
Yeah, but I remember times when I flew to Baltimore to a convention, and the names all get mingled in my head. Dragon Con, maybe something like that. And I remember I flew to Baltimore to a convention, did my time on stage and some pitching in the dealer's room on Saturday, caught an airplane Saturday night late, flew to Cleveland, did a convention in Cleveland on Sunday, and then Monday morning flew back to LA. So there were a bunch of weekends when I would do 2 in a weekend. So it wasn't 45 conventions a year. It was more than that, but it was that many weekends that I was out on the road. I don't think I want to do that any longer. I made a lot of great friends.
You had a schedule like the old pro wrestlers used to when they would drive from San Antonio to, Albuquerque for the next day.
Yeah, the early rock and rollers, they did that.
Yeah.
Night after night.
Yeah,
after
there
night.
was a phase when there was like a Star Trek or science fiction convention every weekend,
Oh, there still is.
The year.
There still is.
Sure
Well, they kind of died down for a while, but now they're back.
No,
now
I had to be careful. I looked at schedules, and I would say, there's 4 of them going on this weekend, but I've recently been to Albuquerque, so I'll skip this one, and I won't go until the next Albuquerque one. So I will go to Minneapolis or, of course I lucked out. There was a convention in Honolulu, and I talked to the studio into sending me, so I got to fly. So I got a free trip for a sci-fi convention in Honolulu.
You were really living out of a suitcase during those years. I mean, like
totally.
literally.
I had suitcases that I never unpacked. I'd get home and I would just switch out the things that needed to be put back in, and it was ready to go at the drop of a ticket.
Wow,
it's amazing.
Well, before we get to our Lipton questions,
hold on, Mike. I do want to ask him a question.
Okay.
Because Buckaroo Banzai is one of the, I think, unheralded great science fiction movies. What went wrong box office with that?
Oh, Terry knows all about that.
Well,
it wasn't box office, it was marketing.
Okay. It's a long, complicated story, and I probably should write the book someday. But the 20th Century Fox picked it up. It actually had started out, it was probably going to be a MGM movie because there was a company called Sherwood Productions that had their deal with MGM. And but a couple executives got involved with Fox, and they came over there. And Fox sort of didn't want it. And then after they saw a rough cut of the movie, nobody understood it, and they didn't. Then they really didn't want it, and so the production execs were never involved. It was just in the hands of the marketing department, and the fellow who was in charge, the head of marketing, he thought the name of the movie was Buckaroo Banzai, and he looked at a rough cut screening of it one day, and he said nobody would know what this is about, and he just said the name of the movie now is Buckaroo Banzai Beyond the Eighth Dimension. The Eighth Dimension. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Beyond the Eighth Dimension. And I was in a meeting, we all said, you can't fit that on a marquee. And he said, I don't care, we've got to explain what it is, because nobody will know what it is. I mean, nobody had that kind of faith in it. So,
and then they came out with that initial ad campaign where they said 12 things you need to know about Buckaroo Banzai before you see the movie.
Well, yeah, that was Norman Levy.
Because they really didn't think anybody would get it.
Well, there was one guy who didn't think they would get it. It was Norman Levy. He was the head of the department, the marketing department, and he just.
Is he still alive?
I'm sure that he's alive. He's probably about my age, and. He just didn't believe in it, so they kind of threw it away, and they gave it to me. So there were 2 of us kind of assigned to it, and a woman named Rosemary La Salandra and me. And Rosemary didn't want to travel, so we talked about some kind of a giveaway item. So, and we watched the movie, and somebody said, "Hey, they made headbands." So we made the headbands, and then they gave them to me, and so I possessed personally in my bedroom at home. I had 35,000 Buckaroo Banzai headbands, and I went out to the convention. He
doesn't have that many anymore.
No, but although I threw them around a little bit, I didn't dive through them like Scrooge McDuck or anything. But I went out and personally handed them out one at a time at conventions, and that was the marketing campaign. Terry Erdmann and his headbands at conventions, and that's all they did. But because they just didn't believe, they didn't want to put any money into it because they hadn't paid to produce it, and they didn't believe it was going to sell tickets. It's a shame because
it's a shame.
Many of us think it's one of the top 10 greatest science fiction movies ever made.
Mike, and we thought the promotion for John Carter was bad.
Yeah.
Marketing for that.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems like the studio doesn't have faith in the intelligence of their audience.
Well, it's true sometimes. Sometimes they do. But that's often true when a movie fails, though.
But in that case, they didn't think there was an audience. They couldn't figure out who the audience would be. It didn't look as if it would sell to teenage boys. It didn't look like it would sell to teenage girls. It wouldn't sell to the older audience that has a lot of money in their pocket to spend. I suppose that they did some market research. I never saw the paperwork come through, but nobody had any faith in it. And at this late date, we can say they were wrong. So, but literally for a little while, it belonged to me. It was mine.
That's awesome, though. But before we get to our Lipton questions, I want to ask about your newest book, Star Trek Pop-Ups.
Yeah, that is another one of those phone calls that came through. Actually, I think it was via an email that time because it was done in the UK. And, I have to admit that this sounds like one of the most fun books. I don't know how fun it is to write, but it has to be one of those most fun books as a reader to open up and just, dive right into.
Coincidentally, we got a copy of it. We
got our copy today.
Yeah, today. We've seen the book now for the very first time this morning, just hours ago. And but the thing is, that was the whole pitch. They wanted to do a Star Trek pop-up book. So Paula sat down and picked out what images she thought would work for them and told them about it.
Yeah, we talked about what they wanted, and they said, we think we want a spread on each of the things, but then they were going to do a couple spreads on one show, but no spread on another one, and so I talked them into doing a spread on each show so that nobody would feel left out. And our job was basically to write the text with it and pick out the photography. And a lot of our books end up working very closely with the Star Trek photo archive, with people that I used to work with. So we spend a lot of time on the phone and sometimes make journeys out to Los Angeles to look through all that stuff. And that's what we did for this book, too.
Not for the pop-up book.
No, not for the pop-up, because there weren't as many images to go for, so I just gave them ideas of what I thought would be good, and they had to be a certain resolution image, too, so, I would talk to them about, okay, for Enterprise, what have you got that's really high resolution for what they can use, and they would look through it, and they'd send me some samples of what they had, so I'd say, yeah, that one looks really good, so.
Right on.
And so that's how we kind of did that book, and just basically wrote a short essay to go with each one.
And then they gave it to their paper designer, their engineer.
Their engineer is the real star on this thing. Her name is on the book, and she's done a number of books for them. And, truly, that is the most skill that goes into these things, is figuring out how to make one of these pop-up designs.
Yeah.
So, hers is a big name on the book, but everybody knows we wrote the text, so big deal.
And but oddly, they've released it now in England. It is out in England only, and we've been told that we did it. First of all, we did it as a one-shot. We got paid, did the job, and it's over with for us. Except we love seeing it out there, but. We've heard through the grapevine that it won't be released in America until
next year,
September of 2015.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of an odd thing. It's not because they don't think the market's there. It has to do with you have to use very specialized paper for these books, apparently, and I guess there was kind of a bit of a shortage of this paper at the moment. So they realized that, the publisher is in the UK, and they wanted to have the most coverage there. So they said, we're going to do all of our coverage in the UK this year, and then next year we'll send it to the United States.
Yeah, but we've confirmed that it can honestly be stated they didn't publish it for the world because there wasn't enough paper.
Wow.
This special paper.
The special paper that they need for the book. But we really like it. I mean, we got it today. We tore it out of the box and sat flipping through the pages and watching stuff pop out at us. So it
was an early Christmas for you.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, whenever we get one of our books, it's like early Christmas, but it's a really cool book. It's fun to look at.
Yeah, we had talked about it last week, that I had come across it somewhere, a link, and I was like, what is this? And mentioned it on the show. And then this last week, the UK announcement came out, and so we checked Amazon, and saw that it was unavailable, and it broke our hearts. So, but I'm glad to hear.
Well, you can if you want to pay shipping, you can get it from Amazon UK.
Yeah, because with Amazon UK, there are some things you can get them to ship to the U.S. and some you can't. And on this one, it definitely says can be shipped to U.S.
Oh, that's awesome.
We got our early copy because we're supposed to be getting some copies down the road, but they didn't have them for us yet because of that paper shortage.
So bizarre.
So we actually sent for one from Amazon UK, and that's the one that came today.
I'm just wondering if there's like a run on pop-up books this year, or what the heck?
No.
Well, I am glad.
There was, by the way, a pop-up book, a Star Trek pop-up book done probably about, 10, 15 years ago. But that was all with illustrations, and this was done with photography. And
it looks beautiful.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, but it looks beautiful. We're really happy with it now that we've touched one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that it will eventually hit the U.S. soil eventually. So get it from the UK if you want to put out the shipping. If not, wait just till 2015 sometime. And
September probably.
September.
I wouldn't doubt, however, some of the dealers at the conventions probably will get copies. You might see it over here, from them only, but it won't be in the bookstores until next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Nick, do you have the Lipton questions?
I do. Now, we have a series of questions. Some of them you've already answered, but we asked these of all the authors on their first time on the show, and we based them on the James Lipton from Inside the Actor's Studio.
Oh, yes. Yes, we're familiar with that show.
We love that show.
I love that. Did you know that he was actually a pimp? I just found that out.
A pimp?
Is this an official question?
No. I found this out because I love James Lipton, and it was a thing in a magazine, and it was like little-known jobs that celebrities had before, and he was in Paris, and he worked. Now, he doesn't call it that. He calls it a much different, but it was like, he worked arranging for escorts. I just thought that was really interesting because there's something demonic about James Lipton's face, and I don't know, I would. And then I absolutely loved him on Arrested Development. He was absolutely hilarious on that. But the first question is, what is your favorite Trek series?
Oh, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
I'd say so. Well, it always runs neck and neck with the original series since I was an original series fan. So I would have to say I'm torn between the two, but Terry is definitely totally Deep Space Nine.
Right on.
Like, that one sounds like it just drowns out all the others for you.
Not really. Well, first of all, I mean, that's another place where I was really lucky. I spent hundreds of hours on the set watching it be, I would lean against the director's chair. I would talk to the actors between shots for 6 of the 7 years. So, I mean, it almost feels like home. I spent many hours sitting in the trailers talking to the characters. The actor wasn't there. I mean, Armin had his full makeup on. I sat between camera setups. The actors would sit around playing chess, and I would sit and watch their chess games. And so, I mean, I'm closer to it than the average fan. I just can't help but love it.
I get mocked often because of my love of Ezri Dax. I love Nicole DeBoer. I love Ezri Dax.
Yeah. Well, see, and I love Scott Bakula. I mean, he's just a brilliant actor, I think.
But he wasn't done it.
No. So when he was announced for Enterprise, suddenly for a while, Enterprise. I mean, we hear a lot of people who say they didn't like Enterprise at all. I love Enterprise. I just think it was wonderful. I think that it's just a really good TV show. But Deep Space Nine will always be my favorite.
You know, it's funny. My fiance is just now watching Trek, and she just finished watching the entire series of Enterprise, and she absolutely loves it. And she's almost on season 4 of Deep Space Nine, and her and I have been arguing because she doesn't like Kira at all. And that's my therapist now. But but season 1 and 2 and even part of season 3, Kira, are very rough, very gruff, very. I think by the end of the series, she will love Kira.
Yeah, she will.
It's just my feeling on that. But like I said, Garak is my favorite of all Star Trek characters, and so much of that has to do with Andrew J. Robinson.
Yeah, well, your fiance has to understand. Kira had a very rough childhood, so you have to forgive her for that.
Yeah.
Now, but Enterprise has really grown on me in the years since it's been off the air.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just I think it gets far better with age.
I think seasons 5, 6, and 7 are the best.
And I know they would have been.
Oh, don't even tease.
Yeah.
Our second question: if you could be any species in Star Trek other than human, what species would you be?
Oh Lord.
Other than human?
Yeah.
Other than human.
Not Pac-Led.
We make things go.
We do podcast.
I can see being a civilian Klingon.
Not in the military.
Not in the military.
Cool. Interesting. That's a unique answer.
I think that's the first one of those we've gotten, Mike.
It is.
I think I would probably, I don't know. I've never really thought about that, but I guess I don't think I'd want all the problems they have, but I'd like to be a Vulcan.
Right on.
I would definitely be a Rihansu. I'm sorry, a Romulan.
Romulan, yeah.
I love. Yeah.
Why? Because if anybody hit you in the shoulder, you wouldn't feel it.
That's all right. That's enough out of you about that. Listen to the Klingon laugh over there. You know, I asked Mike in my nicest possible way, and Mike, you'd have to agree, and then I begged him to read the Rihansu series, and in the end,
I did.
And in the end, you did love them, didn't you?
I do. I do like the Romulans as they were presented in the Diane Duane books. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, they were good.
As they were portrayed on the screen, not so much. But
really, go ahead. Pick up Mark Leonard. Go ahead, do it. Pick it that episode. You can't.
I said, hey.
Well, he's perfect, but he's probably he's probably who she based her Romulan characterizations on.
Yeah. And in case you guys don't know, Mark Leonard was one of the sweetest living human beings ever. He was a wonderfully nice guy, just a nice guy.
Yeah,
and had so much. Whether it was as the Romulan commander or as Sarek, he had so much dignity when he was on screen. The characters that he portrayed, there was so much dignity to them and strength and just a quiet strength.
Yeah, he was a great guy. Yeah.
Now, if you were given the opportunity to write, and this is kind of a Marco-inspired question, an open-ended series based on one character in Star Trek, who would it be?
That's a toughie.
That is a toughie.
But we tried not to make them easy.
Now, there's such a possibility, there's a huge number of possibilities, because, how many characters are there?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. You'd be allowed to pick it out of any time frame, right?
Yes.
You don't have to. Yeah. I picked McCoy.
Right on.
I could see that.
Yeah, Paula's a McCoy fan.
One of my great. Well, while you're thinking about it, one of my great sad things is I didn't come out of the geek closet until far too late that I never got to see DeForest Kelley at a convention.
Oh, well, let me give you a DeForest Kelley story.
Okay. That'll get you off the hook of answering that question then.
Well, no, I'll pick Zial. I'll pick Zial, okay?
Oh.
Yeah, I'll pick Zial.
Very nice.
Oh, he just brought tears to my eyes.
That's a good answer.
I was the unit publicist on Star Trek V, the one people don't like, and
we like Cybok, which is probably the wrong answer.
Yeah, no, a lot of people do like it. People criticize it for the wrong reasons, but anyway, DeForest Kelley only worked about, I think, 11 days. Actually, was what he was written into the call sheets, and we started shooting up in Yosemite Park. The second part of the first week was over by Death Valley in the desert, and then we moved to the Paramount lot. So by then, and DeForest was with us the whole time. So by then, I'd gotten to know him a little bit. I'd never met him before, and this was pre cell phone, and we were on the sound stage one day, and the actors all had their Winnebago trailers, beautiful dressing rooms set up on the lot, all lined up on the lot. And one day I needed to call the office, the publicity office, so I got in line on the sound stage with one telephone, and there was a line of like the extras and people. They're all calling their agents to find out whether they got work tomorrow or not, something. And so I was standing in line. I was like 6th or 7th in line waiting to make this phone call. And DeForest Kelley comes walking up and he says, "Terry, you want to make a phone call?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "You don't have to wait. Come with me. I've got a phone in my trailer." And so I walked with him and we went and we got in his trailer. And he said to me, well, I made the call and then I hung up, and he said, I'm only working like 2 or 3 more days on the movie and the trailer's going to be here the whole time. So he says, "Take my trailer, it's yours." This huge Winnebago. And he called his driver, who was waiting outside because they keep the generators running, and there's a driver assigned to each one of the cars. And he went to him, he hollered, whatever his name was, said, "Joe, the trailer belongs to Terry from now on, so let him have the key and let him come in and out and just give it to him." And I had a trailer via DeForest Kelley, who had known me for a week or the next 2 months. He was a nice man.
Wow.
If Terry was here right now, she'd be in tears.
Yeah, no, he was a real sweetheart.
Oh,
yeah, that's really
awesome.
just a gentleman.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
Wow.
Now this is not genre specific. Is there an author whose books you either run out to the bookstore or nowadays get online and order so that you get it as soon as it's released?
Robert B. Parker, and he just died. The Spencer series are just so much fun.
Mike, I think that's the quickest anyone has answered that question.
It is. I think
normally we stump people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a favorite author, but there's people I would, if there was a room full of their books, I would definitely pick them up, and that would be people like Vonnegut and Amy Tan and Louise Erdrich, a couple of other people like that. Interestingly, not a lot of science fiction people. Well, Vonnegut sometimes, but
okay,
that's interesting. I've recently gotten into urban fantasy, so my list of authors is changing radically. Expanding radically. Let me say. Oh, there's my therapist again. That's my text messages on my phone. The communicator sound effect.
I see.
You're such a geek.
I know, right? Is there a genre that you haven't written or published yet but would love to try?
Well, a year ago we would have said fiction, but we've cracked that.
Well, but he said a genre. Years ago, together, the first thing we ever wrote together was essentially a murder mystery, probably even a serial killer mystery. Sort of a police procedural without the police so much, civilians kind of doing the investigation. And and then we didn't know that we were writers really, and we both had full-time jobs, so we didn't have time, or we didn't finish it. But I think for me that would be it. I would like to write some detective mystery, some Lou Archer kind of.
Are you big Law and Order fans?
Maybe. Yeah, I loved Law and Order, but we don't watch. We dropped out in year 20 or something.
Now, I don't know if you listen to a lot of podcasts.
I want to write a dog book, by the way.
A dog book?
Yes, a dog book.
You folks don't know this. Either in her previous life or in her next life, Paula either was or will be a canine.
I love dogs. No, and I grew up every time I went to the library, I got every dog book I could find. So Lad a Dog was probably my Bible for a long time.
Well, are you a doggy whisperer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. I mean, we watched that TV show religiously.
I grew up in a house where we had a full sled dog of Siberian Huskies.
Ooh,
wow.
Yeah.
And now my parents breed and raise and are just they English bulldogs.
Oh, how sweet!
Yeah. Oh. No, we have two collies laying on our feet right here. You maybe heard them barking a little while ago.
Right on. Yeah, we're all dog lovers. Terry has 2 German Shepherds, wonderful dogs. I have two insanely very nutty dogs, but
Mike's dog though is like that dog on this the Family Guy that's got the walker. That old man, that's Buddy.
Yeah,
he's getting to that point.
He's an old man, and he's grumpy. So, so all right.
What is the name of your starship? The USS.
I think I would say Echo, because when I was a kid, when I was like 15 years old, I had delusions of being a rock and roller, and I actually got into a band, and the name of the band was the Echoes. So I think I would revert back to that. I would say the USS Echo.
That's
right on.
Cool one. I can't think of something, so I would probably just say the USS Copacetic.
Right on.
That was one of my dad's favorite words.
Before I forget, Mike and I are both players of it's an online game called Star Trek Online, and you'll be happy to know, maybe not, worked on Star Trek V, that Nimbus is actually in the game.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
You have missions on Nimbus, and there's a
whole galactic piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a whole.
It's not very peaceful.
No, not at all. When you first beam down, there's the whole Paradise Lost archway and everything. So yeah, I just thought of that.
Are there little pieces that you move around the board?
No,
you're
an online game.
You're playing as a character, so you walk around. You're walking around the planet.
Well, that's cool, because we've actually been to the planet.
One of the things you can get there is something that your character, if you do a certain contest enough, you get the ability to do the fan dance.
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, okay, do you have a favorite adjective? Do you overuse it? And is there an adjective you loathe?
And how many people come up with answers that can't be said on the radio?
Oh, you can say whatever you want. We have an explicit rating.
And trust me, some of the answers have been explicit.
Oh yes.
I would say that the adjective I end up using probably way too much is cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I would. That's probably true of me too. My favorite adjective that I use maybe too much is cool, but when we're writing, because we usually have word count, we're supposed to write. For instance, Less Platinum Lost was supposed to be between 25,000 and 30,000 words, and writing, it's easier to write long than short. So the first thing that I do after we're almost finished, when we think we're getting close to a finished first draft, I go back and eliminate 90% of the adverbs and then take out a lot of the adjectives. So your question is, it's one of the things that we do, eliminating those very words, the adjectives.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Very cool.
Is there one you loathe?
Loathing ones.
Loathing.
I'm sure there is, because I know that there are some words people use that make me grit my teeth. I just can't think of them.
No, I don't think so, because I really love words. No, I don't think so. I think words are kind of, there's no good ones and there's no bad ones. They're just words. You notice how, we may think that something smells really, really bad, but the dogs don't.
Right.
If we think it's bad, they go straight to it. And I always get the feeling that dogs think of smells kind of the way we think of colors. You might like blue better than brown, but you wouldn't call brown a bad color. And that's the way dogs are when they're smelling things. And I feel that way about, I feel the dog's attitude towards words. There's no bad ones. Just sometimes, people put them in the wrong place or use them too often and stuff like that. So I can't come up with a bad word.
I love that answer.
Yeah, what he said.
Right on.
I do have a favorite word that's not an adjective.
Okay.
My favorite word, it just flows across the tongue. It sounds beautiful. It's a really cool sound.
I know what he's going to say.
Syphilis.
I know they're just looking at each other right now.
No.
No comment.
No, I've always thought it sounded like a Greek god.
Yeah, exactly correct.
There you go. Now you got it.
Behold, syphilis. I will enslave you all. Well, yeah, you will.
Oh, syphilis, you just get around way too much.
Syphilis, I'm just dying to meet you. All those things. It's just... Now, the final question we have, and this is usually a pretty good stumper. If you're writing a Star Trek fiction novel, and you're given the green light to kill a major canon character,
and it sticks,
who would you choose? Now, we allow Kirk because, it's interesting to us to see who you would choose.
Boy, that's tough, isn't it? You're right.
That's what everyone says, yes.
Yeah, that's tough because we learn to love these people. Who could a series get along without?
Well, see, that's one approach.
That's an interesting approach, yeah. Most people, the perspective that they go for is whose death would make the biggest either impact or the big be the most interesting. So there's different perspectives, but that approach is.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't pick somebody like that because I like to see them around. I remember, Margaret Clark one year, she really wanted to do a book where Janeway got killed off. And we argued about it for weeks and weeks and weeks because she just didn't like Janeway. And so finally we worked out an agreement that it would appear that Janeway got killed, but she had to bring her back at some point. And she did.
Yeah, she just came back this year.
Yeah. So that was the result of our agreement. It took me several years to bring her back, but
the fact is, I may have killed off Dax because somehow she didn't. Jadzia, because somehow she didn't quite work for me. But she had the Dax symbiont, so Ezri came. So that kind of doesn't count.
Yeah.
Because you kill her and you're not killing her at the same time. But, boy, that's a toughie. It would not be Garrick.
No.
It would not be one of our favorite. Milva. I'd kill Milva.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, sure.
That wouldn't make an impression on anybody.
Oh, no, but he'd be gone, but they'd be running into bombs that he had buried places, mines for years. They could never trust it. Nova still wouldn't get in.
I think if I was going to pick somebody to kill, it would be a character that I just
didn't really care about very much, and whenever they did an episode based on that character, I go, oh man, I'm bored, so.
Yeah, but the major canon ones, I mean, you couldn't say Chekhov or Sulu. You couldn't do that. You couldn't, you
Sure
couldn't
you could.
say,
Why not?
Well, with this game that we're playing, yes, you could.
I don't know.
I mean, you could choose Barkley.
It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a hypothetical. They're not going to die.
Yeah, well, Barkley rather than O'Brien. Yeah, so.
O'Brien's been messed with
say,
enough.
Let's say Keiko.
That's a great answer, and I will back that answer up 1,000,000%.
Harry would be swinging right now.
You're gonna make Molly an orphan. That's not nice.
No, Miles is still alive.
Take care of herself now.
Miles is still around. He's just getting messed with every year.
We all know far too much about Star Trek.
Yes, we do. Oh,
it has been a real pleasure and an honor to talk to you all.
Sure.
This was a lot of fun.
Just thank you so much.
We could do a whole other.
It was nice for us too, because it actually gave us a break from what we've been doing all day for the last 3 months, which is writing. So.
Well, I've got to tell you, we could do a whole nother hour, 2 hours with you just about your adventures in publicity. And working for the studios. And licensing. It's just that, because believe it or not, that's something we talk about often on our show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, we've been there, seen it, done it.
It's well, I'll tell you something off the air about.
Before we go, we have to plug our upcoming book that we have been working on recently. We're doing a book on 50 years of Star Trek wardrobe.
Whoa!
Really?
Yeah.
A full-size coffee table book is 14.5 inches tall.
Yeah. And at the moment, the working title is Star Trek: The Complete Costumes, 5 Decades of Fashion from the Final Frontier. But we don't know if that'll be the final title or not.
We have found a large number of actual costumes, set up a photo session, rented mannequins and lights.
Yeah, we did that over at CBS in Los Angeles a couple of months ago.
Yeah, took photographs, detailed pictures of a lot of the costumes.
Do you know how many cosplayers are going to lose their mind now?
No kidding.
And we've interviewed the existing designers,
the ones we could find,
we could find who are still alive, and and I mean it's going to be as detailed as we could get in a short time frame for writing it.
Yeah.
If we had 5 years, it'd be a real serious book, but we don't have quite enough time for that. But it's still going to be.
So we're hoping people like it. We're kind of like crazy on it.
Yeah, we're real happy with what we've got, and we think it's going to be have been worthwhile the effort.
Awesome.
Mike, we have to tell Larry Nemechek to step up his game because he hasn't come up with anything.
Really?
What?
He hasn't come up with anything that cool. Larry's a real good friend of the show.
Oh, well, he's a good friend of ours, too.
Yeah, we know. He's actually, we live in, he's the only Star Trek fan who has actually come and stayed with us.
In our house.
Since we moved out of Los Angeles, we live in Oregon now. And the only house guest from that world we've had is Larry Nemechek. So.
He's one of the really good people in this world.
Yeah, he is. Quick question. Do you know when we can expect the book to be released?
The wardrobe book?
Yeah.
Yes.
They tell us next fall.
Yeah.
Around the time the pop-up books.
Yeah, probably September of 2015, the same as the pop-up book.
Yeah. People will have to decide between the two if they have a limited budget.
No, Paula,
or get them both.
I think between the three, because don't you think Margaret's going to want to put the next empty sack out at the same time?
Well, I think that would have been if we'd gotten it in around the same time we got the other book in.
Oh yeah, we actually delayed writing the empty sack until we're finished with the wardrobe book.
So,
I'm just thinking as you're talking about this, I'm thinking,
Caspian.
Well, that's our fleet in Star Trek Online. We're known for our wardrobe changes in the middle of battle. No, I'm thinking now of the episode with Apollo because that was such an amazing outfit that the crewmen wore. And I always thought everybody loved. Oh, it's escaping me her name right now.
Carolyn Palamas's dress.
No, that dress. But the blonde on the Cloud Miners. But I always loved the troglodyte woman. I loved the antagonist female character, and
her. Yeah.
When she was dressed in the civilian clothes, I just thought that was one of the most gorgeous. Oh, I'm sweating now. But,
the problem is that there's not great imagery of all these costumes,
Right.
And somebody got sold off and everything, but we did manage to get hold of some, like that.
But my personal favorite is from Nemesis, the Romulan outfits in Nemesis. I thought
we've got those.
That Dina Meyer.
We've got some images of those.
Oh, right
that
on.
That wasn't difficult. But we've even got some original series costumes, but those are a lot harder to get hold of because Tice actually there was an estate sale of Tice's stuff a long time ago, and they disappeared around then.
Yeah,
that's such a shame.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we have some of the imagery of that stuff, and because there were a lot of auctions, we have a lot of images of costumes on mannequins that were being sold. So.
Now, are you guys going to go to the 50th anniversary next year convention?
Which one, in Vegas?
You talking about Vegas?
Yeah.
There's a good chance of that in 2016, right?
Yeah, we probably should. The thing is, it takes place. Shore Leave is 1 week, and Las Vegas is 1 week. And Comic-Con San Diego is 1 week. They're all at the same time.
Well, not quite,
but they're close together.
Yeah.
And see, the little town where we live in, the town where we live in, there's a music venue. There's
a big music festival.
A big music festival, and some of the musicians. There's an orchestra. There's a 100-piece orchestra that comes into town, and it's because big orchestras worldwide are all on hiatus. So the concertmaster from lots of different orchestras, and the principal bass player and the principal violist and the principal cellist and they all come to this music festival and form our town's 100-piece orchestra. And they put the residents put up the musicians, so we always have a musician staying with us for 3 weeks over that period. And that's the reason we don't go to Shore Leave, and it's the reason we don't go to Las Vegas every year.
Well, we might, but that's far enough off that we could make plans.
Yeah, we could probably make plans, but that's the reason we haven't gone the last 2 years.
The problem the last 2 years is because I live in Frederick, Maryland, just north of Baltimore, about halfway between Baltimore and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I go to what I've always done is gone to Shore Leave as my warm-up convention, and then fly from Shore Leave to New Mexico and stay with Terry and her husband for a couple of days, and then we go to Vegas for Star Trek Las Vegas. Last year they were on the same weekend, and then this year they're on the same weekend again.
Yeah.
Which is just that breaks my heart because I love Shore Leave. It's such a great high school reunion.
We've been invited, but we've been unable to go because we're hosting these world-class musicians, so.
Yeah. Well, if you happen to make it out to 2016, feel free to come by our booth. We'd love to talk to you again in person. We're gonna have a booth, so if you want to sit down for a while and sign autographs, you're more than welcome to do that too. I'm sure.
We shall return to the world of conventions.
Yes. Our second problem is we could actually we know who the musician that'll stay at our house is. We could actually just let him have the place. We totally trust him. Yeah. But the question is what Paul is going to do about the dog.
Well, he can take care of the dogs.
I don't know if he can take care of the dogs.
And before I forget, because you enjoy the police procedurals, there's a podcast called Serial that I would highly recommend to you. SERIAL. It's a nonfiction story over multiple episodes. The people that do This American Life from NPR do it. And
really?
Yeah,
we love that.
It's a true story of a murder in 1999 in Baltimore, and an 18-year-old girl in high school is murdered, and her corpse is discovered about a little less than a month later, and her ex-boyfriend, also in high school, goes to jail for life for it.
And Ira Glass gets him out.
No. He's still in jail. It's hosted by Sarah Koenig. Sarah Koenig. Right. But there's a whole lot to this story. I find it hard to believe he was convicted. Let me just put it like that. And it's wonderful. It's called Serial Podcast.
Okay. Check it out.
Yeah, you'll find yourself binge listening to it.
Well, it's been a great pleasure sitting down and talking with both of you. To our audience, check out Lust.
I know. We came up with a title that's impossible to say.
It is not easy. Lust, Latinum, Lost and Found. It's an ebook novella. It's out now. Look for Star Trek pop-up if you're in the UK or if you don't mind paying shipping. Or wait till next year and get that and the upcoming books, the costume and the oh wow, so much is coming out from you guys. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Let me look at that title again. Star Trek: The Complete Costumes: 5 Decades of Fashion from the Final Frontier. That's another long title. We need shorter titles.
And the other note,
sack.
The empty sack. There you go. So check those out. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
It really was a complete pleasure. And please, you have an invitation anytime you want to talk Star Trek. Just let us know, and we'll do another show with you.
Hey, send us an email with the URL address where we can pick up the podcast on this.
Certainly will.
Okay.
Thank you much.
And thank you all for joining us for another edition of Supplemental Log here on the G&T Show for Ceridium.
Kabla!
This is Gettysburg 7 saying Jolan True, bitches.
G&T Show is a busy little Beaver production.
Music for the G&T Show is provided by Warp 11, Grethor, 5 Year Mission, and Andrew Allen's Smooth Federation.